There's no question that a Joe Biden presidency will be drastically different than the past 4 years. For allies and foes alike, gone will be the days of U.S. policy through tweet and a transactional form of diplomacy. Instead, many expect President-elect Biden to return to a more institutionalized, rules-based foreign policy. Nowhere will that be more clear than in the Middle East. Under the Trump administration, countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Egypt all benefited, despite their questionable records at home and abroad. Traditional allies like Israel could also see a major shakeup. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, one of Trump's most closest allies, had a rocky relationship with the Obama administration, where Biden was vice president. Even U.S. adversaries like Iran are also bracing for dramatic change. Biden has said he'll re-enter the 2015 nuclear agreement that Trump scrapped 2 years ago. So, how will the U.S.'s Middle East policy shape out, especially in that crucial first year? And to answer that, joining me now from Istanbul is Talha Kose. He is the Brussels coordinator at SETA, an economic and political research think tank. And from Doha, Ali Bakir, who is a research assistant professor at Qatar University. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. What could, Ali, Trump's loss mean for kings, crown princes, and emirs in the Gulf? Because Trump made no secrets about his transactional relations with them. So how would a Biden administration will be different? And how could those Gulf leaders respond?
Thank you first for having me. I think the outcome is mixed depending on who you are talking to. If Biden is going to be Obama too, and there is a wide perception that he might likely be Obama too, then we are in a better position to anticipate his policies towards the region. When it comes to Saudi Arabia, I think that Biden will certainly put pressure on the Saudi kingdom on the Yemeni issue, on the Gulf crisis, the relations with Iran, internal and external policies. So how the Saudis will respond to this is a little bit difficult to assess due to the irrational behavior of Mohammed bin Salman. But we know that Biden will not be Trump in any way, and there will be no Trump to shield the Saudi crown prince.
Yes.
So probably. Yes.
So, Talha, is it likely that foreign policy positions taken by the White House for the last 4 years can be undone, like moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, as just Ali mentioned, selling billions of dollars worth of military equipment to Saudi Arabia, for example?
Yes, there will be major changes in foreign policy preferences of the President Biden. He clearly outlined that he will not be supporting the war in Yemen. His policy with regard to Israel will be different. He will not be supporting the settlements, and he will be in favor of a two-state solution. So he also said that he will be supporting the humanitarian aid to Palestinians. So on the other issue, there was a very much central policy of UAE and Saudi Arabia, and in their alliance with Israel in the form, shaping of the Middle East policy. And Netanyahu was at the center of this policy with the support of Jared Kushner. So I think there will be a policy change because those relations with Israel was very much centered on personal relations. He will prefer a more balanced approach. Definitely, there will not be too major change, but there will be some transformations in certain areas.
So, Ali, Biden has been quite clear about his support for the Palestinian cause. I mean, he is in favor of two-state solution. He is against the settlement policies. He is against the annexation. So, where does this leave Israel and Netanyahu?
Well, look, Israel and Israeli security is always a priority for the U.S. politics and U.S. politicians, regardless of who is in power there. But I don't believe that we will witness a radical change in the U.S. policies towards the Palestinian-Israeli struggle. Of course, Biden will not be Trump, and no one will be able to offer Israel what Trump did. But I don't see him reversing the measures taken by Trump. Probably he will be opposing the Israeli settlement and trying to keep the Arab peace initiatives alive, especially after it's largely became dead after the normalization effort led in the region by the UAE and other states. So I'm not seeing a major change in but for the Palestinians, it's the lesser evil and it's less destructive than the Trump administration. So this is good.
So, Talha, President Obama's one big legacy in the Middle East was the nuclear deal with Iran signed in 2018, which Trump said the worst deal ever. Is the Biden administration set to take the U.S. back into the agreement in some form? And if the agreement is renewed, let's say, what kind of an impact it would have on Iran's rivals in the region?
I think Biden will definitely return to the Iran nuclear deal, but it will be different at this moment because the context have changed and Iranian side also abused the agreement. So it's led to expansionism of Iran in Syria, in Yemen, in Iraq. So I think Biden administration will try to return to the Iran nuclear deal, but they will try to also restrict some of the Iranian expansionism. So there will be some change on this line. So there may probably be more balanced approach with Iran, Saudi Arabia, and UAE line. So this may be a little bit more balanced approach, which may also incorporate United States allies, European allies, and allies like Turkey, and put them into picture. So the administration was very much focused on Iran and YPG in their policy lines, especially in the second.
So Ali, do you believe Biden will be able to hold the Saudi crown prince accountable for the brutal murder of the journalist Khashoggi without hurting the US's financial, strategic, and military interests in the region?
Well, this is something to be seen. I mean, it's pretty much early to anticipate how it will be. But as I mentioned before, there will be a lot of pressure on Saudi Arabia and particularly on the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And it will be up to the Saudis how to react to this pressure. Either they will have to make concessions to the Biden administration, or probably the pressure will push Saudi Arabia towards restoring or reestablishing its relations with Turkey, for example, or another option, maybe Saudi Arabia will be forced to normalize its relations with Israel in order to lessen the pressure, the American pressure on it. So these things are still not yet formed in a better way. We will have to wait and see also how the Congress will act regarding the Saudi Arabia.
So, Talha, Egypt's Sisi has launched a brutal crackdown on dissidents at home. So what's at stake for Egypt and its president under the new Biden administration?
So one of the pillars of the foreign policy for Biden, I mean, he clearly outlined that he will not be supporting the authoritarians, and he will be in favor of more transparent economic situation, and he will try to also emphasize the human rights values that are significant for U.S. foreign policy pillars. So if you take those pillars into account, I think there will be more pressure on Al-Sisi, especially the human rights record is also questionable, and also there will be some questions with regard to authoritarian aspects. So there may be some sanctions, some diplomatic pressure on Al-Sisi to make some changes in certain practices. So that's why they increased their lobby in Washington. They also made some changes, released some of the prisoners, political prisoners. So they may respond to signal some change in their policies, the Egyptian side. So I don't know how Biden administration will respond to this, but as we remember from the Obama administration, they didn't put too much emphasis and too much pressure on Al-Sisi. So probably they will try a gradual approach with Egypt.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk.
Thank you very much for hosting me. Thank you.